Hello, and welcome to Color Light Motion, created and hosted by Victoria Vesna. I'm Bess Rocklitzer, president of the David Vermant Foundation, and I'm very pleased to introduce Marisa Caichiolo. Marisa is an artist and curator whose projects have been shown internationally. She is the founder of Building Bridges, an international art foundation in Santa Monica, California. Please enjoy her presentation titled The Skin, a Land of Discoveries.
Welcome, Marisa, and thank you for doing this. We so appreciate having your presence here. And to the audience, I'll do just a very brief introduction. You have it all in the bios and on our website. But just to say that one of the reasons I'm super delighted to welcome Marisa to be featured here is because she is a force of nature. She is an artist who's showing all over the world, and she's also a curator who's curating all over the world. Her projects have been shown internationally in all museums you could possibly imagine. I don't want to list them, but just to mention some, they're all over the world. So Miami Science Museum, Guadalajara, the Buenos Aires, where she's originally from. And she has connections to artists from all over the world as well. But what is really important to note is that as an artist, an individual artist who's able to do her own work and continue doing with her work, she's also generating a network and she's generating community. She does this through the Building Bridges gallery that's in Santa Monica. And the shows there are constantly going. They're always amazing. And it really helped to reinvigorate that community in the west of Los Angeles. So with that, I'm just so pleased to welcome you. Thank you, Marisa, and welcome.
Let me unmute. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much, Victoria, for having me, the Vermont Foundation, and everybody who makes this wonderful program possible. Thank you for having me. And I want to say thank you to all the special guests that I know that they're around here somehow, and I will introduce them later. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to work and collaborate with each of you in a different capacity. So again, like Victoria was mentioned early, I'm the founder of Building Bridges Art Exchange. So I've been working in the art practices between curatorial work and creating and producing my own works. This main focus today of this conversation or this presentation will be around the dialogue, the connection somehow between some of the artists from the Vermont collection and my own work. But how I want to start this is very amazing, because when Victoria was connecting me and asking me to participate in this program, I was, oh my goodness, my memory went back. And I was doing a curatorial work on geometric abstraction and kinetic art in 2016 and 17. And suddenly, one of the pieces that I was seeing in the collection of Vermont collection was actually Julio Leparc from Argentina, from my country, and an artist that I was really trying to find to be part of that exhibition that I curate in Mexico City the first time, and it was traveling. So I want to mention a little bit about that exhibition for you to understand how much passion actually I had in the history, in the very strong history of kinetic art and abstract art in Brazil, Argentina, in all that area. And actually that exhibition back then in 2016, the title was Continental Abstractions, Latin American Between the Rational and the Sensible. And it was in Spanish, of course, Abstracción Continental, América Latina, entre lo racional y lo sensible. So it was very interesting because I had a lot of the artists that they were working in the movement, in that movement with Julio Leparc and with Marta Boto, part of the Berman collection in that exhibition. So I will share some images. So as you see is Policello right there, and the exhibitions in the pieces in this exhibition. I have to say the selection of photographies from this exhibit, very close group of artists from Marta as well as Julio Leparc are Giulia Cosice, Rogelio Policello, Manabu Mave, Marcos Isibarri, Tutaka Toyota from Brazil, different, well, in that exhibition I had Cislos, all original, so Cislos, Carlos Mérida, María Luisa Pacheco, Tony Capellan, between all these names. And I think I want to show this image. Here we have the entrance of the exhibition in the museum was the selection of all these artists. And it was all about the movement and the movement of kinetic artists and abstract artists and how the abstraction came into Latin America and South America. So I will go right now to share with you the work that I decided to choose from the collection of Berman collection, which is Julio Leparc and Marta Boto. And I will explain why. Here it is. The work of Julio Leparc. So I want to mention, probably you all know who was Julio Leparc, but Julio Leparc was born in Argentina in 1928, and he was a very significant figure for the Argentinian modern art, especially focusing in optical art. And he was much involved in the creation of the movement of the arte concreto, concrete art movement in Argentina, in South America, and a big precursor of kinetic art, and founding different groups in the moment around the kinetic art era and movement. And of course, for me, being an Argentinian artist and curator as well, and working with the different movements along the years, along the timeline and history of art in South America, and seeing the connection of these artists being part of this collection, I was amazed that I could have the chance to at least speak about what happened in Latin America in that moment. Because when you see pieces like this, nowadays, we see, oh my God, oh yes, they move and the pieces are moving. And, you know, there's a sculptural piece that it has lighting or it has sound of movement. Now we see a lot of the emerging art and immersive and all this. But in that moment, it was a political statement as well. It was part of the beginning of the 20th century, and the Latin American and Caribbean artists starting to create this very strong movement. Of course, in Argentina was the movement of concrete, as many other movements that they were around the industrial transformation and working in this process with different techniques, part of this movement, that they were also transforming and changing in a connection with the senses, with the human senses, with all the different, you know, like I think in that moment, artists were trying to avoid the exclusive point of view of a vision, just to be visual, the art piece, to actually get more in connection with movement and with different connections with the sound, with the movement, with the light and color in that moment. So it was a lot of changes. So that's why I really select and I choose this piece and these two artists, Marta and Julio Leparc and Marta Boto. And I have to say, Marta, which actually I will show, this is a piece from Marta Boto that I chose for the collection, for the Burbank collection, is Marta also was born in Argentina a little earlier than Julio Leparc, 3 years earlier. And they were kind of the pioneers in this movement and in this changes of the way that everybody was seeing art and creating this art that was moving, that they were actually creating a moment of connection with the viewer because it was a participation. It was actually a way to participate, to be part of that piece in that moment. You imagine so many years ago. So it was a moment that you could press a button or you can actually touch something in the piece and the piece will start to move to create sound or movement or light. So it was a big change on the whole dynamic of how we really see or we thought about the art world and the artwork and the pieces itself. And it was also a working in collaboration, all those groups of artists, those movements that they were going on in Latin America, they were really working together in creating this actually a political statement. There was including the viewer, the public, and calling for a transformation. So, of course, the concepts of movement, light, and color were incorporating industrial materials because the industries were changing in that moment. So the electric motors, like, of course, now we are going into a full different moment in humanity when we are facing intelligence artificial and all these different changes with the IA, and we're seeing, oh my goodness, this is so much, this is a transformation, it's going to change humanity. And of course, if we're looking backwards and we see what was going on in those moments of a big industrial transformation, and actually the transformation that this was generating in the arts communities, in the production of the artwork itself, and in the experimentation, because at the end of the day, they were all artists working and is interesting in absorbing and reflecting the lights and the colors and the movements in a totally different way that was presented before. So of course, as the elements, the variation on the materials were pushing forward, it was creating an entire dynamic, including aluminum, plexiglass, stainless steel, all these materials that these artists were including. But actually, the more interesting part for me is that as a pioneer, Marta Boto of the kinetic art, and all this process is very interesting because it was a woman. And of course, sometimes you don't hear her name as the other names in the game, as Cosice or Polecello or some of the, when I'm talking about the Argentinian artists, that they were really there because they were male artists. And I will stop sharing and moving into the connection with, or what I thought that it was good, or a conversation between my work and the work of those artists. Of course, my work is totally different. And actually I use most of the time as a social commentary, and I use textile, which is totally different of those materials, using a more organic material. But I just see certain relationships between lines, between the way that I use the textile, even with some kind of geometrical forms. Most of the time in my early work, know that much right now, but funny enough, in my latest projects, I've been using silver. So somehow getting into the connection of the metal, the silver, and the organic materials, it was a very interesting practice. It still is, because I'm investigating and trying to go through that process. I will show some of the pieces that I thought that will be interesting in connection with the pieces. And I want to see if we have Jesus here, because I'm trying to also get a comment from Jesus that was yes, Jesus is here. Jesus, maybe you wanna unmute yourself. Jesus is an artist from Argentina, but also he is the person who does documentation and photography, and he did for many years, following behind the scenes to Julio Lepar. So I think it's very important if we have a little, like 1 minute, a little idea of who Julio was, or how he was really behind the scenes on every exhibition and every proposal. So Jesus, maybe, thank you so much for being with us. And maybe you want to say something about Julio.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. No, it's my pleasure be in this conversation with Marisa and with you for talk a little about my experience with Julio. It was very good experience, because we can see in the different piece of Julio and very good vitality that is about his vitality in the life. Julio, he's a big artist, and in this incredible, I was staying with him in the last exhibition in Punta del Este in Uruguay, and we was stay together in the flight, in the trip. I can't believe I talked with Marisa that about the creation, the vitality. Julio have an expression. He's optimist forever, and he make this sentence every day, and he lie when he start the day. He's very optimist. Oh, I have a lot history with Julio, but I think it's very the more important is this subject, the vitality and the form and the color. And I know Marisa told in this moment about an sculpture, very good. And you know, when Julio work with the lights, the inspiration for him is the reflect in the water in the pool, or when you have a glass, I don't know, a glass of wine or water, and when the light reflect, you can see and different different form the light reflect. This is the inspiration for Julio for this kind of piece. And I think we can say about the Julio, the vitality, the color, and this expression, the optimist forever is you know, when he made the signature for the book, is every time this and I think
Nice.
when people ask for Julio, okay, who you will want the people remember you, and he say like I'm person like a lot optimist.
That is so wonderful to hear, and working with light, of course.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful.
That's exactly, Victoria, what I was planning to say, because I thought that Jesus can give us a little bit of an insight of who
Beautiful.
And the thing is, working with light, working with movement, you really pull out all this energy, all this light from within yourself, and connecting what you have within, plus capturing the light and the objects from the external world. And I think the positive energy And the vitality, like you say, even in an older age, that vitality and keep creating and working all the time is something that you can see in the pieces, in the movement, in the color. Actually, that reflects every
Wonderful.
Yes. So
thank you, Jesus.
much.
So stay on and maybe join us at the end if you have time.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, Marisa. And it's very good support the art and also the Argentinian friend. And it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jesus. Bye-bye. See you soon. Hopefully you stay on.
Yeah.
Okay, we continue.
Yes, so I will keep after this little intervention, but I thought it was very interesting.
No, that was perfect actually, because it was still in our minds. So talking about it later would have been hard.
Yeah, but I think it was a little intervention just to
intervention of light and optimism.
Exactly.
Which is how I see you too, by the way. I really always see you as light and optimism. Okay, so I'll let you center stage again.
I will keep, we'll keep sharing the work. And these are pieces, give me a second. Okay, so those are pieces that in the beginning, when I start seeing the work, just like I say, it's totally different. In the beginning, these are pieces that I start working with in 2010, 2009, and it was all about the skin. Basically, because for the last 20 years of my work, or 25 years, I've been really, I can say that my work is really a declaration of principles. And it's a very personal work. It's a declaration of principles. It is about light. It is about, that's why when you asked me about the title, Victoria, it was like, yes, the title could be The Skin, A Land of Discovery, which is the title that a Cuban art critic, Daniel, really support me with this title, because along my entire body of work for like 30 years now, it's always been around the skin, and the skin as the layer that we have. So I've been focusing on the different variations, on what we are reflecting also with the skin as a metaphor, the skin as a shield, the skin as the mediating element and support for a nomadic identity, because basically what I keep seeing is we are changing our skin every time that we move to a different country, that we move as an immigrant, that we move to a different situations in our lives. So I think that we are changing, always exposed and interacting with others in the construction of this skin, and in my case of this feminine and feminist identity that I have in this exchange and this transformation. Like an animal, we really transform ourselves, we change our skin. So that was my approach, my approach with the art and with the pieces, really regarding the skin. In this case, what you see, and I was thinking a lot about the sculptures from both of them, from Marta and from Julio, because they're about light and they're about movement. This was not, in this case, is underneath the skin emptiness. This is the title of this body of work. And it's interesting, I think I have some other pieces, because it is related in somehow with a structure, with a geometric form, with a game of lighting as well, and shadows and light, and really reflects the way that we can see ourselves and others can see ourselves as well. In this case, I want to share most of my practice is really, really personal and engaging with the situations that we're facing. And in that particular body of work, like 11, 12 years ago, I was going through a very personal situation in my life. And I was thinking a lot about the role of the feminine, the role of the mothers in the house, and how these dresses somehow represented the pillars that they're supporting and holding a house. In that case, it was my own experience, but I think is the way that society sometimes works, and how we are women also strong, supporting the pillars of a society in a certain way, and the role of the mothers, the role of a lot of roles and in society. And of course, in my construction of works and pieces, it's always from my perspective of displacement and an immigrant and an artist and the skin as this layer. I see this work, these dresses, that they're layers, they're part of the body, they become a support, they become the pillars, they become the something that is connecting us all. And the skin as a layer, as a blanket, as a barrier, but always something that is actually that you can go through, even as hard as metal. And here is again another part that I really connect with the use of somehow metal in different form or capacity, but to use these silver elements, these metal elements, and to break through the elements, the hard part of a metal, to break it through an organic piece, an organic element, of course, coming from myself because it's my own hair. And in that moment also, at different moments of my life and my art practice and my situation as a mother, as a woman, as an immigrant, as an artist as well, as a part of this society. And so I think you're always trying to see how we can permeate, like how we can go through this hard elements. And of course, at the same time, all these areas where we see the skin as a symbol, as a narrative, as a structure, but at the same time is we are seeing the skin transforming. So it can be a shield, like a metal shield that you can see here with this element, that they're utensils, they're transforming themselves into something with life. And of course, in the way that I was creating all the series, how else can I serve you? I was actually thinking about the notions of how we instrument our lives. How is the connection between the male and the feminine? How is this silent scenarios of violation and in every layer of society? So of course, exploring sometimes new path like this one and incorporating this very contrasting elements into my art practice was not that easy, but I connect with the work somehow of this artist, that they were exploring and working with all these different forms and lights and reflections and movements. And I just think that in this case, for me, working with these elements, it's a lot of it's a knitting almost, it's embroidering, but it's breaking through the silver, the metal, and knitting sometimes this very soft element, organic element, as is my own hair, almost as a political statement, as a statement of, yes, sometimes something very soft and very organic can really go through the metal, through the silver, and make a change, in the dynamic, and make a change in the whole piece, as you can see it. So yes, I've been using different materials during my practice, and I think it all becomes, at the end of the day, it is a social commentary. even some of the art critics mentioned in Mexico in one of the exhibitions that this was kind of capillary calligraphy, which was very interesting, this topic for me, because he said, you're doing calligraphy, you're doing a narrative, a letters, a words, but with your hair. So I found very interesting how other people can really see your work, and the metamorphosis that we can create in one piece. So of course, it's a volume, it's a thickness of the materiality, but at the same time is this universe that somehow is transforming in this piece and is creating this net that I see, this organic net, that every time that I saw, you know, after I finish a pieces, probably they're like months that I don't see any of them. When I see them again, it's almost a transformation. It's a very interesting nido, nest going inside this process. And it's an evolution and it's a transformation within myself. And I think that with the elements, that's what I love about all these pieces. And of course, I believe that the creation process is very important. And I was actually thinking about this artist, Marta, Julio, in the beginning of the changes and the experimentation with different elements. My God, the excitement, because I think that when you are working and you're developing an artistic project that is kind of touching a different element that is not that conventional and that is something new, or is a very interesting combination of elements, you establish a different connection with the world, a different conversation, a different narrative that can take you to totally different places. This is my experimentation with the interaction of the pieces, but also with the pieces going out in the world and interacting and growing and interacting and flourishing with different people. And I saw in certain cultures and in certain places where I show this work, like in the Curitiba Biennial, where here you have the other pieces, back to the pieces, and I will share another images. But I think when you see these elements, these very normal elements that they're part of your routines on a daily basis, like a spoon, or like, you know, and something that is wrapped into your hair, into, I will share another images, it becomes very interesting and very unique. And I think that's what I feel the connection to in these pieces, and in the way that those masters changing the whole, you know, the whole world and artist practice they were doing back then in the early 60s and 70s. And I will now share another few more images before we're going to sorry about the wait. But here is some more images about the calligraphy that I was mentioning about. And see, this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's very, I use the hair as a very grotesque, as just almost like a ritual of managing sometimes the feelings and frustrations, and putting all this there in that element. So, and that's when the lights happen and you play. That's what I was really connecting with these pieces of metal and these sculptures. You know, you play with the lights. You're also working with photography. You play with the way, almost as a mirror, that piece speaks back to you, and you see the reflection, the lights, and the game between all these elements. So here you can see a little more images from that that collection, how else can I serve you? And I think mainly in the way that that we can talk about certain fixations in artists, as an artist, as a curator as well, because I think they're both practices that you are using a lot of your creative force, a lot of your creative energy. And when you create your own pieces, you are telling a story, but also when you create or you design an exhibition, you are creating a larger story, probably, that involves a lot more people and narratives and conversations and dialogue. Most of the time, I really try to engage with this thread, with this net that you can connect with all the different artists and the different elements. That's why, for me, building bridges as a project itself is very important. Is building these bridges and understanding other cultures, another way of living. They're really creating this wonderful net that can save us as a humanity, no? So, and this is a sample of that. I didn't want to add a lot of videos because I have a lot of videos creating these pieces, but I didn't want to get all involved in that. But you can see the process and how it is to almost, like I say earlier, as a ritual, to go through the different elements and play around. And of course, I have a different section with performances, and I'm inviting most of the time a dancer that is collaborating with me in a lot of the performances, either live or with videos and compilation and documentation of those performances. So that's pretty much what I have to share in terms of a connection with those pieces. Of course, my work really fluctuates between the elements of the organic elements, the textile, the embroidery, the sewing, and experimenting with different formats. One of the probably things that I want to confess is that when you are, the evolution of the artist is very slow sometimes, and we're going in circles. You know, I have to say, I've been passing many times around the same areas of conversations and the same areas of investigation, and always go back to the same material and the same ideas or construction of investigation and research. That was the skin at the beginning of my career. Very early years, my full investigation was with the skin, how we really separate the inner world and the outer world. As we know, we are part of the whole, we are all one. And this layer, the skin, is very permeable. We are getting all the time these exchanges with the inner and outer world. And I think this, for moments, that's why I was playing always with the topic. For moments, I see it or I feel it in my own skin, thinner or thicker. And I think it has a lot to do with what's going on in our social, in our environment, that we transform ourselves. And in some moments, that skin becomes like a shield, like really something strong, and we kind of like go back into the feelings. And for some other moments, it really open up and is a lot more easy to access. I think it's something very personal, but I think it's something that's going on with humanity, and we experienced very recently this pandemic, and the way that each body and each mind really could manage that process. And I think that also has to do a lot with the skin, how we change, how we shift our skins in different moments and transform ourselves, and how easy or faster we can really transform that skin in order to navigate those external and internal conversations. So that's basically what I have to say so far regarding the work or the conversation or the connection with the work. And I would love to probably, let me stop sharing. Victoria, I don't know, what do you think? But I would love to probably get my guest, invite my guest because of timing, and have them really, you know,
here they are.
Something about this, even a few words.
Ana Maria and Lydia.
I'm very honored to with the guests that I have today.
Oh, what a wonderful group you got.
Wonderful
Fantastic.
group.
So welcome to
hola.
Shana Padambrod. Hi.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And Doug Casina, Lydia Rubenstein, Ana Maria Matei, everybody here. Mita Bestruchlitzer, who's the director of the foundation. And I just wanted to make one small comment that what struck me about your presentation today that really focused on skin is our struggle now with AI and with technology that's so never going to be skin. Somebody said recently, well, AI cannot swim. And it kind of says everything, you know, just to have this attack of the non-human and to bring it back to this humanity is just so important right now, to get off the screen, to reclaim our power and not forget our skin. It's very beautiful. I wanted just to ask you a question from the audience before we go into a conversation. Kate is asking, what societal and political problems exactly are you focusing on? If you could just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yes, well, I think it is a lot of different issues. The migration, immigration, violence, and it's a lot of issues that come in, you know, and surviving a youth in South America with the crisis that we have to go through, and the machismo and all this in a general conversation. I think it talks a lot. It's interesting because an art critic once said, "Oh, your work is about feminism," and I say, "No, really. You know, the work, yes, it could be feminist, but it's a lot larger than that, the topic, because when you talk about that last body of work that I show, How Else Can I Serve You, also talks about violence and talk about illegality and talks about, you know, how we play different roles in society, or how we are allowed to play certain roles. Actually could be to see the governmental structure that shield that, you know, so it's a lot of things, because you're breaking through with the hair in a moment that actually you could, with something very organic and human, to break through the government, a lot of issues. So sometimes I try to be very poetic, I believe so very poetic in the way that I say things. Maybe I'm not, but I'm not that direct. And it's
that's absolutely true. And
very a poetic and
the
beautiful
complexity. Yes.
Yeah, it's a very complex, and there's all these many layers. As the skin has many layers, I think the work has many layers, even with a different. Yeah.
And one more question for the underneath the skin emptiness. Is there any meaning behind the absence of color?
Yes.
So that the dresses are black or white only?
Yes. Yes. Well, the entire meaning in that particular series is an old series. that I was working very closely with Middle East in 2007, 2008. And I was amazed about the connection and the structure of those two colors, especially in the Arab world, and how they were covering and uncovering with black and white, and the female and the male in black and white, and this bipolarity. So I was, every time that I was going out to have meetings, I saw all the black dresses in one side, all the white dresses in the other side, representing the feminine and the masculine, which was very interesting. The masculine as white, the feminine as black. And I say, oh my God, I wanna get that and reunite those colors as a pillars of society, as a pillars of a house, of a home, but with the dress of a woman, you know, because it's a dress. At the end of the day, you know, I know that a lot of back in history, we had a lot of men dressed, and nowadays again, you know, dress with dresses. But I was representing a little bit of the both femininity and masculinity in the black and white polarities as a pillars of society. So that's the black and white. And I serious is the beginning and the first presentation with a video that called Underneath the Skin Emptiness, was presented in the Museum of Sharjah in Dubai back then. And the video was a woman covering and uncovering herself with a burqa. And in that point, so many years ago, it was really hard. Basically, none of the women were uncovered in the street. Nowadays, it's a lot easier, and a lot of women that uncover themselves. But I think back then, I saw that dichotomy and that very strong bipolarity, and I start working with this Underneath the Skin Emptiness.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I will now give the floor to your guests. Maybe one of you wants to start, or
yeah. Well, I don't know who volunteered, but
can you just say a few words about your relationship to the people in the room?
I think I'm gonna present each of you one by one. Let's start with Shayna, an art critic that I admire and forever, and is my friend, and she has my friend and admiration. She knows that. So yes, and thank you again for doing this. Thank you.
Great. My pleasure. I'm glad you started with me, because it's the last work that you presented that I personally love the most. So I'm really excited to just be at that little segue spot. As you know, I have some small photographic prints. By the way, I don't quite remember if you mentioned this, but those works, the silver and the hair, the photographs are printed on metal as well.
Yes.
So that it's not only the imagery that contains the silver, but the physical object of the photograph is a metal object as well when you receive it. So, and because although I've had those for years, there was a show in Los Angeles at Wanzimmer just a couple of months ago that showed them. And it was so lovely to see the whole series, which again is presented in a kind of, or in the two times I've seen it installed, it's also presented in a kind of high-end place setting energy, right? Like there are sorry, I live in downtown Los Angeles. Just
okay.
That'll go by in a second. But there are larger ones and smaller prints, and they're kind of arrayed like on the wall, and which to my mind speaks a little bit to what the original objects would have been used for. And so all of that, I just wanted to mention all of that there's this element, like we're talking about skin, but there's also this important and affecting physicality to the work as well. Yeah. And so that's part of what I wanted to say. So yes, it's true. I'm an art critic here in LA. I'm the art center at the LA Weekly. I've been advising in whatever way I can at building bridges for a long time. And I'm a personal huge fan of Marisa. What I think I wanted to say while I have my couple minutes here is to tease out the aspect of this work in specific, but all or most of it, which is that there is a performative element to it all. There's a performance, there's like an enacting, right? It's not just sort of like set pieces, which would already be very rich with symbolism and ritual, and I don't want to say religious, but when you think about sort of important ritual garments, that's often from a kind of worship type sphere or spiritual type, a ceremonial, and again, ritual kind of thing. And so I feel that it's very important to include that. I loved your comment about like an AI can't swim. Well, I don't know if an AI could do performance art either, because that is so much about presence and being embodied and sharing a physical space with your audience, something that unfolds over time, something experiential and shared for everyone. And yes, most people eventually see performance art in a documentation form in some way, or an artifact or a residue. But the core of it is this physical presence, all the senses, time, context, all of those things that feed into what those images are that then become exhibited. Or you might imagine what the uses for those garments would have been before and after this moment of display. And so I just thought it would be really great to factor that in, because skin, color, light, movement, those are, indelible elements of a performance art practice. And so even though I don't think of Marisa as a performance artist, I've noticed, these photographs are in these places. They're traveled to, they're occupied. Something's done in public, probably without warning or permits or any permission of any kind. And all of that energy is also wrapped up in the objects by the time we get them. And so I just wanted to honor that real quick while we're here.
No, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having those pieces. I know I was very, very honored when the guy told me and say, Jaina took some of your pieces. I was like, oh my God.
Well, I needed, and that was the other thing is
you.
They're each really beautiful, but when you start to realize like what's really happening, and hair, I mean, we don't have time. We have to do a whole other session about hair, because my gosh, culturally, in myth and legend, in every religious text, in our contemporary society, women, especially, hair, that's quite a thing. So everything you said about softness, overcoming or penetrating hardness is all completely true. But I also want to say, like, hair also brings with it a whole universe of understanding.
Totally.
That's very, it's not monolithic, but it's specific.
Oh yeah. And in the indigenous culture, they say, the great grandmothers, they say, if you want to cry, don't cry, just put your tears inside your hair, and and that's why you breathe your hair. So I think it's a whole, there's a lot of rituals and a lot of components. The same thing when we die, the hair keeps growing. So there's a lot of things and components that are very strong, conceptually about hair.
And with science. I mean,
and DNA, exactly.
Like hair, like everything I've done for however long that this took is physically in there. Yes. Somebody with the right mass spectrometer could reconstruct a diary of the last however many years of your life. When you're ritually cleansed, they shave the head. I mean, there's so much on and on and on. Like I said, I'm not going to hijack this, but you all know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I would just say, like, factor that into an understanding of that series as well.
Yeah.
Great.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're always, yeah.
Thank you, Shanna. What great comment.
Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's great to see
Well,
everyone.
maybe Doug Casina, which is the director of K Contemporary, and actually Doug had my work last week there. So thank you so much for being here. And yeah.
Well, hi, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so I'm the owner of K Contemporary Gallery here in Denver, Colorado. And I had the privilege of exhibiting some of Marisa's work here recently for a pop-up exhibition that we were doing around the biennial of the Americas for the City Summit of the Americas that was here just recently. So it was a 2-week pop-up, and we were exhibiting the "How can I serve you?" Or "How may I serve you?" Works. So some of the objects and video projection as well with that. But first of all, I've known Marisa for the better part of a decade now that we've been working together in a multitude of different ways. And this is the first time I've actually been able to exhibit with her work. So in the past, we've collaborated on pieces for the Biennial of the Americas, for other projects here at the gallery, but more from her on a curatorial basis, working with artists like Ángel Ricardo Rios and performance artist Carlos Martial. She's introduced me to some really fabulous artists that I have the pleasure of working with. And the way Marisa shows up, not just in her practice, but in her nonprofit, for her artists, I see how you hold that space for people, and it's incredible to me. And it transforms the many layers of your personal practice too. There's this storytelling and this empathy that just emits from all the projects that you do that just draw me in to the work. And one thing, and I think there's a lot, it's interesting. I know you're very bipolar, or you keep the things very disparate as far as your curatorial practice and your personal art practice. You keep those very separate. But I see common threads within there. Often, there's this idea around performance, body, and object. And for me, that's a really interesting intersection. And because for example, the work that we just showed here with the silver and with the hair, it does emote these ideas of violence, of servitude, of power, of diaspora. And then it's really, again, that softness of the personal that comes through with it, with the body, with the hair. And for me, there's this empathy and healing that goes on when I look at your work. And it's powerful and it's transformative in that way. I think it was such an honor for me to be able to exhibit that alongside, Carlos Martial and Marielle Plaisir and Suchitra Matai's work, which are all looking at this idea of diaspora, looking at the idea of the domestic, and looking at the idea of object. And I love this idea of skin also being something to do with what we wear and what's close to our bodies. And for me, that really resonates. And I love watching you chase your curiosity in your work. It's endlessly fascinating for me.
I agree. And I think that the community that you build with artists who are your friends and who work with you, and the professionalism you have to actually stay away when you're showing, even though your work may fit perfectly, it still, to me, seems like a way where you're learning and engaging the same subject directly and deeply, and not just from the sidelines as a visitor or as a viewer. And that generosity is rare in artists. It's mostly self-centered. At least we're taught to be that way. Let's put it in the correct way. We're taught to just be about ourselves and building our ego, and to see that you can actually do both is a really good example that encourages that, rather than just do your own thing. So I totally appreciate that about you, Marisa.
Oh,
She
thank
truly
you.
is.
You make me feel like I'm gonna cry. No, thank you. Thank you for each of you. But yes, I have to say it's been challenging to separate both works.
Yes.
Artist and curatorial work, and to try to keep both of my parts alive, because
I feel you.
at the end of the day is one me, is one
Yes.
person, and it's all one. But I separate because I believe, okay, that's myself creating and the curatorial, and I always separate that, and it's not that easy. Sometimes I get myself in trouble because people feel bad if I say, no, but I don't want to be there. I don't want to be part of that because, you know, because I'm curating the show, where I'm, so it's a little bit, sometimes it's an internal conflict, but I have to say, as getting older, it's interesting because little by little, I'm learning to put things together, probably in a very particular way, but I'm becoming a whole. As the older that I get, I think you know, I'm embracing both in a different way, but I'm embracing it is an interesting thing. And well, and I don't want to get so much longer, so I want to invite Ana Maria Matei. Ana Maria has been also, yeah, well, you tell me, Ana, because I just, I love her so much, and I've been collaborating for many years. So, Ana Maria.
Bueno, yo conozco a Marisa hace varios años, coincidimos en las ferias en Bogotá, Colombia, y desde ahí hemos entablado una muy linda amistad entre las dos. Y no solo ha sido una amistad como personas que nos conocimos, sino que más bien porque Marisa ha sido una colaboradora constante conmigo. Yo tengo la revista Arte al Límite, que es una revista de arte latinoamericana que llevamos 25 años editando, y muchas veces le he pedido las asesorías a Marisa como curadora. Para que así podamos lograr que esta revista sea cada día con mejor calidad de artista y con buenas entrevistas.
Ana,
Dentro de esto,
déjame traducir porque me voy a olvidar.
ya.
I would translate very quickly, but you know, we met in Colombia in one of the art fairs many years ago, and we started collaborating. Ana Maria is the founder and owner of Arte al Límite magazine, and we've been collaborating, and I've been supporting the magazine in different ways and in collaboration since we met years ago. Sí.
Ya. Bueno, no solo como, como curadora, Marisa, hemos logrado armar cosas en la revista, sino que en el 2017 le pedí que hiciera la curatoría para exhibir la primera muestra de parte de la colección que hemos formado durante estos 25 años.
Bueno, no solo there's not that many years that we collaborate with the magazine, but also in 2017, they asked me, I had the honor, they asked me to curate the first time that they put an exhibition of the collection to the public, open to the public, in the Telefónica Foundation in Chile. And I have to say, Ana Maria, this is like, I'm actually like adding this. Ana Maria is having like, oh my God, thousands and thousands of works. And now it's open in a museum. So it's a new museum coming up in Chile. Yeah. Ana.
Bueno, puedes contarles que entonces estamos trabajando para inaugurar, ojalá en 2024, donde también vas a realizar la curatoría para ese evento.
Yeah, and so we're working together right now to the curatorial work of the museum, to open up the museum in 2024. So I'm working directly with her to do that. That's the project that we share at the moment. It's always challenging, because of the amount of work that they have. It's
felicidades.
Y no solo como curadora nosotros tenemos relación, sino que también tenemos dos obras de Marisa, la de los bordados y la de plata, bordada con cabello, ¿en qué más puedo servirte? Y eso, ¿cómo se llama? También le hemos realizado 2 o 3 entrevistas en nuestro medio como artista, que consideramos que es una excelente y gran artista, ha logrado, como dijo ella en la entrevista, poder ser ambas cosas, curadora y artista, que no es fácil en este ambiente lograr separar y lograr hacer cada una por su lado muy bien.
So yeah, well, she say that besides everything else, you know, I have 2 pieces in the permanent collection, and she has the honor also to know me as both curator and artist, and that really believe that my art practice is very strong, and that's been supporting also the practice with interviews in the magazine, with few interviews along the years. And one of the pieces is from an embroidery piece from the early series, and another pieces that they own in the collection is some of the silver embroidery, part of the How Else Can I Serve You? And I have to add, Ana Maria, you know, the collection that she has is amazing. From Ai Weiwei to everybody that you can imagine in the art world. So we're talking about thousands and thousands.
Amazing.
So yeah, yes, it's very impressive, the collection, very impressive. And so I can't wait to see the museum done, and I can't wait to see the exhibition.
Muchas gracias, Ana María, por tu
Gracias.
felicidad por tu museo. Qué bueno.
And now, last but not least, because Lydia Rubinstein is an amazing, amazing friend, collector, art collector, supporter. Lydia was part of the MOLA board of directors, the Museum of Latin American Art, for many years, part of building bridges currently, part of the HRI, the Getty Research Institute, the museum, the Getty Research Institute for currently, and a lot of knowledge, a lot of collection, and supporting artists, and an amazing human being that I consider my dear friend also.
I'm amazed of, you know, what the presentation you have done is amazing, because you have summarized your life in a way of, you know, only an artist like you can do it. But one thing that you didn't bring is the impact that you have in the people that you have met along the lines of residents coming to work with you. And I'm, you know, like a person that show what you can do in terms of letting them develop and express things that they have inside that they didn't even know that exist. It was amazing for me to see the change in the development of the work that they've done when they came to see you and they start working with you, and you didn't tell them what to do. They just was a little comment, a little, maybe this is a different way to present things, but they changed our lives. And I've seen them progress in terms of over the years, how they had grown up by being with you and getting your feedback on the work that they were doing. It's amazing. That is an art that many people would like to have and don't have it, but you have it, and you can project that and change the life of people. I mean, that's incredible.
Thank you, Lydia. You know what it is, talking about light, that this particular talk or conversation is about movement, light, and color. And I think it's the light. Most of us, we are coming to this earth, and I think we forget in the process, in the journey, how magical we all are and how much light and creativity we have. And I think and to me, I experienced this for 20 years, and now more than ever, I think in the last 10 years or 17 years, is when you just open that little door to somebody's heart and open without judgment, and you put a little bit of light, you just open a window, a door that has an explosion of light. Talking about kinetic art and about, I think that's light in motion. We are all particles of light and energy. And I think most of us were so blocked that we are afraid to see that. And when they're coming to building bridges to do the residencies, and I experience with all the artists, and the other day, I was talking to one of the artists that is coming up with a project with NASA, and he said, Marisa, I can't believe you're the only person that trusts like in me completely, without judging, without, you know, and I think when you give that, really everything explodes, you know, and I think it is that, is just to believe in the other person and in the capacity. And most of the time it's a lot of no's, a lot of judgment, and that creates fear, and at the same time creates a blockage, you know, and so nobody wins in that situation. When you really open the other door, it really is about that. But thank you for saying that, because you see it, you experience every time that you visit the residencies, and you see.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for being like you are.
And we need that light so much more than ever. You know, it's such a strange time, and in the darkness, the light becomes more obvious and clearer and more powerful. So thank you for doing that, Marisa. You know, I think that every great artist is a great mentor, or should be anyway. And if you're not inspiring people, then what's the point? It's all about fame and ego, and who needs that? In this age, we don't need it. We need more light. We need more artists who are community builders, networkers, who are spreading other visions, not just apocalyptic visions, and at the same time making a critique and making people more aware. So not just utopia with no down to earth, feet on the ground, but really layering it like you do. So at first sight, it's fun, but then if you want to go through the onion skins, you really get into many different complex issues. So it cannot be just marked as feminist art or this art or that art. It's complex, and that complexity is distilled into something that we can all appreciate and get some inspiration from. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and bringing in the works of Le Parc and Boto is just fabulous.
And I think I think it's interesting because it's about humanity. We, you know, I always have comments, people say, oh, you're always smiling. It's not that I'm always happy. I think you smile, but you can have a million problems in the back of your head, but actually a smile is a gift to every person that you encounter in your way. You know, I always, I go a lot in airports, and I always say, my God, you see all these faces, all these people passing by very fast, like the speed of a light. Talking about, and you see all this, but it's changing completely when you are in one of the stairs, and everybody's going up and down, and you see one smile smiling at you. It doesn't matter. You're not gonna see that smile again, but that smile is changing your entire energy. And I think that's something that we are missing,
Yes.
that we are, and it doesn't mean that we're smiling because we're laughing and everything is happiness. And no, it doesn't, I think it's a practice. It's a practice in general. And I think we all should be able to do more for others and ourselves.
I'm pretty sure, and Bess can chime in, that Maria Boto's piece was actually the very first piece that David Vermand collected. Bess,
the Alviani was the first.
And then right after that was Maria, right?
Could be.
I think
Could
so.
be. And we saw it there in the Butler, looking beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. So the whole collection has moved. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so beautiful, and it's so beautiful that you give the space to Marta, because in that movement, in that kinetic movement, in that very like a male force of the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it was really hard to be a female artist, like Latin American female artist, and
It
strong.
still is.
It still is, but it was a lot harder.
Impossible, yeah,
It was
sure.
almost impossible, and she moved from Argentina to France, you know, the same as everybody else, because that was a big movement. And from South America, from Argentina, everybody was moving to Paris, to France, to really pursue their art careers. But it was hard to as a woman, and to do this such a strong experimentation with materials, and materials that they were about the industrial revolution in that moment. It was a very hard statement, social and political statement right there.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well,
Beautiful.
thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Marisa. And in the spirit of Julio and in honor of you, I will just take with me optimism and light and lots of smiles.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much
Such
for
a pleasure.
having us, all the entire friends.
Everyone, such a good talk.
Yes, this was really wonderful, inspirational, and thank you for your light.